parts. First 50 minutes I will go, and then I would request all the participants to keep adding the question in the chat. End of my presentation, I will take all the questions, whatever is there. To the best of my knowledge, I will try to answer. If I don't know, I will get back to you by noon. When Amandeep presents, I will try to give the answers for it. First 50 minutes, and then we will take a 5 minutes break or 10 minutes break for explaining all the questions, and then we will continue the second phase of the presentation. Is it fine, Varun?
Okay, sir.
So that people also get a bio break. Whoever has a question, they can ask, and then we will start after 5 minutes break. Okay, fine.
Okay,
So
sir.
now that we have started doing this statistical design, so let me first explain to you why is it important. See, today what is happening is we are all interested in some technology. Okay, some technology development we are there. So when we start developing a technology, there will always be a process. Let it be service industry, let it be manufacturing industry, let it be design industry. Okay, any industry you will have, yeah, you will, when you try to develop your technology, this technology will be attached to a process. Okay, for example, service. Let us take Ola and Uber. Okay, they give services. This pizza, Domino's pizza. Then we have this Sugi. Okay. Then we have this Ola and Uber Eat. They also give. This is all in service domain. Let's look at the design domain. See, design domain, there is a flight. We travel in a flight. We go in a car. We go in a bus. We go in a ship. So we try to travel in all these vehicles. When we try to travel in these vehicles, there has to be an optimization, there has to be a reliability, there has to be a safety which is there. So all these things will try to have a process within. When we try to talk about manufacturing industry is like producing a pharmaceutical medicine, producing a steel, producing cement, producing automobile parts. All these things, there is a process there. When there is a process which is there involved, so this process has to be optimized. So optimization, why do we do this? We do this optimization only to make sure that we use the best and get the best efficient way out of that process. So this is why we always try to look at the process. When we look at the process, let it be cooking, let it be even arranging for this lectures, all these things are process. You working in a chemical industry, you working in a mechanical industry, you working in developing a product, you working on designing a product, all these things, we need to have a process. So now you have to best use that process. So how do we best use that process? Moment I say there is a process, then there are inputs, there are outputs. First, you should know what are all the inputs, then you should know what are all the outputs. Right? So many a times we know the inputs, but we don't know the output what to do. For example, if you try to buy a handkerchief, if you try to buy a cotton, if you try to buy a Huggies diaper, we will always say that the diaper has to be as soft as possible. So what is the unit for softness? The output is not measurable. I would like to have a dinner which is very tasty. What is the output which we can measure? We cannot measure the tasteness in terms of engineering quantity. We always try to do in terms of indirect measurement. Maybe you might say, no, nothing is left in the plate. That can be one thing. Or few grams left in the plate. Half of the food left in the plate. So we can measure it as wastage which has happened, and then from there we try to correlate with the taste of the food. Right? So that's how we do. So if your mother always says that, okay, you have completely cleaned the plate, then she understands that the food would have been tasty. And you, without even telling, it is understood the food was tasty and you enjoyed it. Okay, so these are all parameters which are output where that cannot be directly measured. Your height, weight, the speed of a vehicle, the efficiency of an engine, all these things are measurable. So you should know what are all the inputs, what are all the outputs. Again, in the outputs, there are two, measurable and indirectly measurable. So we have to understand that first. In manufacturing industry, they say, if you cannot validate your answer or if you cannot quantify your output, then no point in manufacturing the product. If you cannot measure the output, then please don't manufacture the product, because you might say it is 1, I might say it is 10, and we don't know how to measure. So there ends the matter. Many of the engineering parameters which are available today, except for the mechanical properties, we will have always a difficulty in evaluating the parameter. On a free-form surface, roughness. So free-form surface, first you have to define. On a free-form surface, then you will try to define what is the RA. Whatever you and I know, the RA measurement is on a flat surface or on a cylindrical surface. If it is a free-form surface, there is a curvature there, dimension variation can come there. And on top of it, we try to talk about roughness. So it is very difficult, right? So we should understand what is the process. The ultimate aim is to make the process efficient such that we can get a prescribed output. Only for that, we are going to use some of the statistical tools to find out the best. First of all, you have to find out the significant parameters. Then you will try to find out the optimized model or something like that. Only for that, we are going to use, or we are studying about design for experiments. Let us take a simple example of preparing a tea. A tea has ingredients, maybe milk, water, chai ki patta, then you have some spices, then you have sugar. So these are the 5 ingredients. Now, out of these 5 ingredients, which is significant, which is not significant, that is important. So can you do a tea without milk? Yes, possible. We all think without milk you can't do a tea. But there are a lot of people today, we drink green tea, we drink black tea. So a tea can be made without milk itself. A tea can be made without sugar itself, depending upon the customer requirement, I'm saying. Okay, you can make a, so is it significant? No. But what is a significant parameter? Water is a significant parameter. Chai ki patti is a significant parameter. Without this, you can't make it. But you can make a tea without milk. You can make a tea without sugar. You can make a tea without spices. So now these two are significant, rest are insignificant. Right? So this is what we have to understand in the process. So we have to understand what is significant, what is insignificant. And or I would say you rate them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then you try to take the significant parameters and start attacking the significant parameters. Okay, so this is all we will read in or go through in this lecture, and for which RSM is one tool which will clearly visualize the influence of individual parameters over the output. Drawing a figure speaks 1,000 words. So RSM is a methodology where output you will get a graph. This graph will be in 3-dimensional, so you can quickly understand what are significant parameters, what are insignificant parameters, how is it going to hit the output. And the other thing is, you should also understand all these parameters, what we use. When these parameters are getting done in a process, you will always have in the process noise also. We have to find out what is that noise, how do we eliminate this noise. Because these noise have an input on the influence on the output. So this is what we are going to read or go through in the next 2 hours of my lecture. So I would request you, as and when you have queries, please keep adding it in the chat box. And at the end of the first lecture, I will try to take those questions and then move on. So we will try to go through this presentation like this. First, I will have some introduction, which I have covered to a large extent. So next, we will have basic concepts. Then we will try to see types of RSM design. Then we will try to see response surfaces. examples, advantage and disadvantages. So today we have back-to-back presentation. One is my presentation and followed by it will be Dr. Amandeep Singh. So Dr. Amandeep Singh will be trying to go one step ahead and explaining some of the terminologies with respect to formula. And if time permits, he also would like to demonstrate and show you how to use the software in the design for experiments. Okay, so when we talk about design of experiments, there are so many design of experiments which came into existence. So again, what is this design of experiments? I told you, you have parameters x1, x2, x3. For example, while making tea, I told you milk, water, chai ki patta, sugar, and then I also told you water. Okay, so these are the 5 parameters you took. Now, these 5 parameters, if you try to, you can try to vary individual parameters continuously. For example, 10 ml of water, 20 ml of water, 30 ml of water, 40 ml of water. You can keep on going up to a cup of tea is around about 250 ml. So you can keep on be going 100 up to 150 ml. You can keep on be going. Then what we do is we try to add milk. Then milk also you can start going from 10 ml. You can keep on going up to 100 ml. Then sugar, you can try to go from 1/8 of a spoon, then 1/6 of a spoon, 1/4 of a spoon, 1/2 of a spoon, then 1/3 of a spoon. Then you can try to go for 1 full spoon. Okay, so now you see it is continuously varying. Same with other. So now if you start doing experiments with all these continuous points, then what will happen is you will have to do thousands of experiments. Please understand, doing experiment is not a joke. It is costly. It is because it involves a lot of your time and raw material cost and the machine cost. So it is costly. So what we do is we try to optimize the number of parameters. Second, the range of parameters. And then what we do is we plan our experiments. When we plan our experiments, we try to make sure that we don't do all points and we try to do certain points, and then we try to interpolate the data for the intermediate points and get the answer. So now what has happened? You are planning the experiments to minimum number of experiments to speak about the entire space in which you are working. For example, if you are a mechanical engineer and if you are doing a turning operation, you have speed, feed, depth of cut. And the output parameter is going to be material removal rate, tool wear rate, or you can try to have RA, or you can try to have cutting force. These are some of the outputs you can measure. So now with this output, whatever it is, you will try to see the influence of speed, feed, depth of cut. Now the speed, feed, depth of cut, speed can vary from 63 RPM to 2500 RPM. Then feeds can vary from 0.01 to 3 millimeter per minute. Depth of cut can go from 0.1 or 0.05. It can go up to 6-7 millimeters. So it can go in this depth. So now if you want to plan the experiments and do it, so then what happens is it tries to always you try to do minimum number of experiments to talk about the space. So that is what is planning the design for experiments. So you have CCD is one technique, and then we have D-optimal design is there. Box-Benken is there. D-optimal design is there. First was started of D-optimum design in 1959. Then in 1971, D-optimum design was there. Then you have several of these algorithms, exchange algorithms developed, and at last in 1974 came D-optimal design. So all these things are different ways in which where you are planning to do minimum number of experiments to talk about the working space wherever you are. Now, who defines the working space? That is important. We will see later. Now, next is application of optimization comes next, because what you try to do, you can always try to machine with some speed, some feed, some depth of cut. You can always do that. But if you want to exactly do the best way, then we try to go for this optimization. Okay, application of optimization is there. Design HSCT, then optimization of large wing structure, multi-level approximation, robust, reliable, and designed base. So these are some of the optimization techniques which are used today for talking about or for improving the process. When you try to do that, when you try to do a clear definition problem, the first thing is a design for problem. You should clearly know what is the problem you are going to attack. If you don't know the problem what you are going to attack, then it is no point you will try to use this tool very efficiently. For example, if there is a process and that process efficiency is around about 20%, you wanted to improve the efficiency to 25%. Okay, so now if you, that is the clear definition of the problem, wherein which you cannot say in only words, but you have to change into engineering terminologies. I would like to improve the efficiency from 10% to 50%. Okay, so this efficiency in terms of energy consumption or in terms of wastage which is ejected out, or the money what you spend, or you can also talk about the tools which you replace. Okay, so now the problem definition is very clear. Now what do? You try to find out, determine the objective. So when we have this 10% and 50% itself is a set. Now, in that set, what you have to do is you have to divide that set into several small segments. So then you will try to have objectives. Objectives are subset. Now, for each subset, you will again have an objective. So for reaching that for reaching 50% efficiency, what I will do is I will first understand each of the machining process which is going on, or I will try to understand first the input raw material quality. So then what you do is, this is one objective. Like that, what you will do is you will have 6, 7 objectives, right? And for each objectives, you will try to find out what is the output exactly you want and what are the factors which are affecting. For example, if you try to say, I would like to enhance my tool life to 50%. Okay, so now what I will do is I will try to do my experiments in a controlled fashion, and I would like to make sure the cutting force falls less than this. And so for this, I have, these are the factors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, these are the factors, x1, x2, x3, x4 are the factors. And now what I will do is I will plan my design of experiments, and then I will try to do those experiments. So I will try to do minimum number of experiments to talk about it. Then I will try to conduct experiments. Then I will try to analyze data. So here, when you try to do analyze data and interpret the result, we use RSM. Effectively, we use RSM here. Then what do? Once we have done it, we have got a model. Then what do? We wanted to know the authenticity of the model. If somebody comes and says that, okay, I have seen God morning 6 o'clock. Today morning 6 o'clock, I saw a God. So now some of your friend makes this statement. So then what you will do the next day, you will say that, okay, you have seen it. So let me also come and see at 6 o'clock whether the God comes in front of you. Then next day morning, what do? Whatever statement he said, you will go there and verify that statement. Correct? So when you develop a model also, what we do is we keep that model, and then we don't go 100% on the model. But what we do is we try to validate the model. So how do you validate? We randomly choose some experiments. Or what do? I go at 5:55, or I go at 5:50, or I go at 6:10 and see whether God is there. Right? If many a times what is happening, if your son, if your brother, or if you say that I am studying from morning till evening, what your mother does is she peeps into the door at regular intervals, maybe first hour, third hour, fifth hour, or the 7th hour, something. She just peeps inside. And when she peeps inside, if you are studying, then she says, yes, Ram was studying right from morning till evening. So the statement what you said is validated. So in experiments, real time also we do it. We do experiments. After interpreting, we develop a model. We validate that model, and then what we do is we try to take the idea or do additional experiments. So when we talk about this, is the process which I have been talking about. So this process is a black box in a system. So you will have X1, X2, X3, X4. These are all varying inputs. See, it is very interesting. You can even make your studying process, learning. Learning is a process. If you can make learning is a process, And if you want to improve your learning efficiency, you have umpty number of ways to do it. For example, X1 can be having all the class notes, okay, of the subject, whatever you are reading. X2 can be having all the books, whatever you are reading. X3 can be time. X4 can be a tuition master or a friend. X5 can be another parameter. X6 can be the table what you sit. X7 can be the light what it comes. X8 maybe the power connection in your house. X9 can be the disturbance which is given by your friends. Okay, all these things are input parameters keeping you as a person, and you are doing a learning exercise or you are studying for the examination. What is the output Y? Well, output Y is the performance in the examination. Right. So now you can do all sorts of things. X1, X2, X3, X4. You can try to have all these controls, and you can try to do the output. Okay, so this is what is talked about in this process. So when we are trying to talk about this, you will have a basic function. So what Draber said was, he said that there is a simple basic function which is linear or quadratic polynomial to fill the data, to draw a, so it is such as linear or polynomial. See, whenever you want to make a process as simple as possible, we start with a linear model. We start with a linear model, okay, such as linear or quadratic polynomial fit to the data obtained from the experiments is called as response surface. So as I told you, when you do the experiment, when you start analyzing the experiment and interpreting the result, 6th and 7th place only, your RSM comes in a big way. Your RSM comes in a big way only in the 6th and 7th way. Okay, so next one is response surface methodology is a collection of statistical. So this is very, very important statement. Response surface methodology works on this design of experiment. Design of experiment was developed from statistical analysis. Statistical analysis and probability analysis are different. Statistical analysis is there is a scientific math behind it, and that math will be used in explaining the answers. Okay, next is response surface methodology is a method for constructing global approximations to system behavior based on results calculated at various points in the design space. We will see what is design space little later. Just hold it on and we will see that. So now you should understand why should we do design of experiments. Now you should understand how do we analyze the result. RSM is a tool which is used for analyzing the result. Analyzing the result from the experiments which you have done and the model which you have developed. Okay, let us take a simple example of making a cake. So in making a cake, these are all the factors. Factors are oven, then you will have sugar, then you will have flour, then you will have egg. Okay, so now these are the factors. Now in these factors, what happens when you talk about oven, it is not the type of oven, it is the temperature in the oven. So now you will have temperatures right from maybe from 30 degrees to 100 degrees or 150 degrees, whatever it is. Okay, you will have. Now what you will do is you will not work on all the data points. You will try to convert these data points into discrete levels. Discrete levels. So now the discrete levels is called as factors. Okay, so now what you will do is you will try to work on discrete levels. This can be +0, +1 or -1. So when you say 0, it is the mean value in the range whatever you are working. Say for example, if you decide to work from 40 degrees to 70 degrees, you decide to work, then what you do is you try to take the mid value of 30 to 70, 40 to 70, which is 30. The mid value is 15. So 55 becomes your 0 level, and exactly 15 +15 and -15. The spacing between the two levels must be the same. Keep it in mind. Many a times when we publish papers, we always make a mistake. We don't maintain the space level equal. If you don't maintain the level equal, then many a times when you start interpreting the results, you might not get the correct value. Your model will not be correct. Okay, so in that way, you are supposed to take the choose the range and then divide the range into several levels. Now let us first understand how do we decide the range. For example, when you talk about turning experiment, when you talk about chemical processing experiment, you might have x1, x2, x3, x4, 4 variables. In this case, we have 4 variables: oven, sugar, flour, and egg. So here what will happen is you will have a oven temperature from 0 degrees to a maximum 150 degrees. Now what you do is you will first do one factor at a time experiment. One factor at a time experiment means you will try to choose x2, x3, x4. Three of these parameters. Try to set at the mid value of these 3 parameters and start varying the temperature right from 0 degrees to 150 degrees. And then try to see the output. Many a times you don't have to do this experiment. From the available literature or from your past experience or from hearsay or from expert advice, they will always try to give you a range. If you don't know the range, then you have to do one factor at a time. One factor at a time means you will start varying from 0. You will keep on be varying up to 150 degrees Celsius and see what is the response coming on to the cake. And again, you have kept 3 parameters. One is taste, color, and consistency. You can try to have only color and start doing the experiment. So you will try to do mid value of x2, mid value of x3, mid value of x4 you have fixed. And then you are trying to vary the temperature from 0 to 150. And you will always look at the color only. Now what will happen? You will see that at between 70 to 90, yes, there is a change. After 90, what happens? It instantaneously makes it dark. So that means to say my safe working range is 70 to 90 in temperature. Now what have you done? You have identified the range. Many a times in the turning experiments or EDM experiments, ECM experiments, laser experiments, when people publish paper, first they don't practice the one factor at a time. They just do experiments with the range, whatever is available or which they pick from some other paper and then start doing it. Please note it. When you do all these experiments, it is a empirical data. Empirical data means these experiments are fixed to that lab, that machine, that operator for that workpiece. Okay, so you cannot go by that value, but you can try to keep the range and try to do your simple experiments. Fine. First, you have done x1 parameter, you have found out the range. Next, what you do is in that working range, you will choose the mid value and then go to x2. Again, you will vary from 0 to 100 or 30 to 80, whatever it is, and fix x3 and x4 at their mid values. In the same way, when you repeat for x1, x2, x3, x4, you are getting a range. You are getting a range. For example, oven temperature can be, the best range can be from 70 degrees to 90 degrees. Okay. Next is sugar can be from 5 grams to 8 grams. Flour can be, I'm just giving an example, or you can take 50 grams to 80 grams. Flour can be equal to 100 grams to 120 grams. Eggs can be from 2 eggs to 4 eggs. Now what has happened? You have got the ranges for x1, x2, x3 and x4. Now you see all these ranges have, all these parameters are independent, and the second thing is they have different engineering magnitude. The first thing you have to know is when you try to choose these parameters, you have to choose them in such a fashion such that they are independent. X1 should not have an influence on X2. Say, for example, by changing the voltage. Let's take an example. Energy is nothing but V into I into T. Okay, suppose you take one parameter as energy and the other parameter, suppose you take as voltage. Now you can't do the experiment because for energy calculation also you used V into I into T, and for voltage is again a separate thing which you should ask him what is to be done. Okay, so these are dependent parameters. You cannot use the dependent parameters. You have to use independent parameters. So independent parameters are chosen. That is what is x1, x2, x3, x4. And now you have chosen the range 70, 90, 50, 80, 100, 120, 2, 4. Now the next step what we do is we try to divide the range in levels. You can divide all the parameters in equal levels. For example, oven you can try to have 3, sugar you can have 3 levels, then flour you can have 3 levels, egg you can have 3 levels. Moment I say 3 levels, the mid value becomes 0, and then you will have +1 and then -1. For example, when you take oven, the temperature, it is 80 degrees, you take +1 is 90 degrees, 10 degrees apart, and -1 is 70 degrees. Same way, when you try to take sugar, it is 60 grams. You will have, it is 65 grams. And then you will try to have 80 grams. And then you will try to have 50 grams. And then when you try to take the flour, you will try to have mid value 110. You will have 100. You will have 100. And then you will have 120. So the distance between these two need not be the same for all the parameters, but the spacing should be uniform between the levels. Okay. Now you can choose all the parameters having the same significant, the same levels, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Or suppose you try to find out that sugar is the most important one. I would like to divide sugar into 5 levels and do it. Fine, that is also possible. But between the levels, you should have a uniform distance in that sugar parameter. Okay, so first you have to do one factor at a time, then you will try to do spacing. So many a times you might come back and argue, sir, I have a machine where the spacing is not possible. Then you are supposed to go back and fine tune your ranges and try to choose in such a way such that the machine allowable RPM or allowable parameters are there in your levels. If it is very close by, you can round it off. Okay, suppose you have in the lathe machine, you have RPM set to 63, but your level says 70. Fine, you do a small approximation and make 63 and 70 you want as per the table, but you have only 63. Fine, you do. But you should keep it in mind when you are trying to give the output parameter interpretation, keep the small variation what you have given it in terms of RPM. So now you see, you will try to do these experiments and try to do it. So these are the factors, these are the levels. In between you have a black box which is called the process. You have a black box which is called the process. In this process, there can be signal or noise. This can come, and then finally you try to get the output. Is this clear? So this is very, very important. If you do a mistake in doing the design of experiments, even the input parameters, levels of the input parameters, whatever you try to get as output, that will not be correct if you do a mess up here. Any mess up you do it here at every level, it gets 10 times amplified, and then it goes, whatever answer you get will be completely different. Okay, so that's why I took a lot of time. So this all I have explained to you. Now you have to understand these 3 parameters. One is comparing alternatives. The next one is identifying significant input. The third one is achieving a optimal process output. So finally, what we want to get this Y1, Y2, Y3. These are outputs. These are very good taste, good color, and consistency we are looking forward. Okay, and here we would try to have this comparing alternatives. In case of our cake baking example, we might want to compare the results with 2 different types of flours. That is also possible. If it is turned out that the flour from different vendors was not significant. See, what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to tell, okay, this is a flour which we are using. Again, this flour can come from 3 different vendors. First, I'm trying to take one vendor and then trying to do all the experiments and trying to get the output. Okay. Next time, what do I do is, and I find out that this flour is expensive and it is also very significant. It is expensive and it is very significant. So then what do I do is, I try to replace this flour, maybe different types of flour, or I can try to change the grain size of the flour, or I can change the vendor of the flour. So because these are all the alternatives. Okay, so this is what is talked about in the comparing alternatives. I can do between 3 vendors, one with the flour alone, or 3 different grain size flour, 3 different types with respect to flour. Okay, so then what do? I finish all the experiments because I have 4 parameters: oven, sugar, flour, and egg. Which one is significant, which is not significant? So I will try to find out by looking at the results, making a model, and then I will try to find out the significant parameters. With the significant parameters, you can again try to fine-tune your experiments and divide it into 5 levels and then further go towards optimization. Okay, many a times in industry today, it is hit and go. The first time they do, they get the best one and then they do it. Okay, when the company is coming into a corporate business and when they are trying to compete for cost, they will always do this design of experiments and optimization. Okay, so these are the factors I have talked about, responses I have talked about. Then reducing variability. Reducing variability is also very important. Fine, you have done all these things, sir. You have done, you have found out the best range, you have found out this, you have found out that, you have found out this, everything you have done. But let us assume that all of a sudden there is a customer who comes and says, I want a cake without egg. So now what you do is you have to produce a cake without egg. But can I use the same recipe? No, you cannot. So now reducing the variability means, can the recipe be changed so that it is more likely to always come out with the same? See, if you look at all the chain shops, for example, McDonald's, Domino's, Starbucks, okay, and then a lot of food chains, okay, they will always try to have the same output. You have a pizza at Hyderabad, have a pizza at Chennai, have a pizza at Delhi, have a pizza at Chicago, you will get the same taste. Look at it. The places are different, the climates are different, the person who does the operation are different, his skill level is different, and the vegetable what you get is also different at various places. But still you are able to get the same output. Same output is the taste everywhere. Why is it and how is it? They have reduced the number of variabilities in it. For example, they would have said very clearly the vegetable or the cheese or the base, whatever you use, should not have a variation more than this. So the pizza fellow does reduce the variation. The person who produces the base for the pizza will try to have something in his output. So he will try to reduce variation. Like that, if you see, everybody, if they follow design of experiments and then understand the process will be perfectly under control. Okay. So whatever we do here in terms of Y1, there are only 3 options of output. 1 is maximize, 2 is minimize. The third one is make it as a standard. Normal is the best. But generally, we don't work on normal is the best. Either we try to maximize the output or minimize the output. Okay, so now what we do is, how can you maximize the output in terms of without wastage? How can I sell all the cakes which I produce? Or I will try to minimize all the ingredients used to get the same Y1 output. So this is what is maximize, minimize, and target on an output. Okay. The next one is improving process or product robustness. Variation has to be stopped. And then balancing trade-off when there are multiple critical to quality characteristics that requires optimization. Now you do. How do you produce the best tasting cake with the simplest recipe and shortest baking time? So this is a trade-off which you should try to hit. The first one, what you did was you were only worrying about producing the consistent output. First one. But now what are you trying to do is you are trying to say, I have to do all these things and keeping a efficient process. So that is a trade-off which you hit. Okay, so for doing all these things, you will try to have the model, whatever you develop, or the product, whatever you develop, it has to be robust. So we have already seen what is a structure, what is a factor, what are the layouts. So when we try to do this design, there are two important things which comes into existence. One is called as the noise factor. Noise factor are those things, for example, the humidity in the atmosphere. This is very important when we talk about pharma industries, chemical industries, cooking industry, or baking industry. The humidity plays a very, very important role. Okay, in a chemistry lab, humidity plays an important role, but humidity you can't control. But what you do is you try to do your experiments in a glow box, or you try to do it in a controlled room, such that these noise factors to a large extent are reduced. Okay, so noise factors are something which is very important. In your own input, you might have a noise. In your own process, you might have a noise. So you will always try to reduce the noise and try to take only significant parameters. So there are certain parameters which you cannot control. Humidity, you cannot control. The atmospheric humidity, the temperature of the atmosphere, you can't control. So, but what you can control is you do all the experiments inside a closed room or in a confined space so that you try to reduce the variability. See, for example, when the baby is born, if the baby is not doing great, so what they do is they put the baby in an incubator. What is an incubator? In a controlled atmosphere, the baby will be allowed to grow for some time. Moment it has grown and it has become significant or it has become robust or stable, then what they do is they move him to the ward. So this is incubated and then they come move it. So this, in the incubation, what we do is we try to reduce the noise level. Okay, then there are certain things which are called as unexplained variation. Okay, so unexplained variation can so these are nothing but or the other sources of error, or they can obscure the result. Note the term error is not synchronous with mistake. Okay, so it is not. Unexplained variation means sometimes you will try to see a small variation which is happening in the output where it is becoming very difficult for you to explain. Those things are also possible. These are certain things we should keep it in mind. Noise, we should reduce it to as much as possible, and there can be certain places where variations cannot happen. Okay, unexplained variations is, for example, this you can try to say psychology is one thing. Whenever I used to wear a blue shirt and blue pant and a blue chappal, I used to excel very well in my college days. Can you explain it? I cannot explain. If I wear a blue shirt and a blue pant and wear a brown chappal, I did not get good marks. So is there a correlation for it? No, there is no correlation. So there is a variation. Now the correlation is there, but the variation, the causation is not there. Correlation is there, but the causation is not there. Okay. Next is correlation and the causation, which I was trying to talk about. This is what I said. If I wear a brown color chappal, I did not perform very well. Why did this happen? I don't know. How do I explain? I don't know. But it is basically my thought process or my psychology, whatever it is. And when you do, the other thing, important thing is there is also a combination factor, which is called as interaction. In the design of experiments, you took X1, X2, X3, X4. These are the 4 factors. These 4 factors, you did it at certain, these are the 4 factors. And then in the 4 factors, you did at 3 levels each. And when you did experiments, there is independent influence on the output. There is a interaction influence on the output. You are supposed to know also the interaction effect. If, for example, X1's influence on Y1, X2's influence on Y2, X3's influence on Y3, X4's influence on Y4. Then you will have an influence of X1, X2, X1, X3, X1, X4, X2, X3, X2, X4, X3, X4. Then you will have an interaction effect of X1, X2, X3, X1, X2, X4. Then you will have X3, X4, X1, X3, X4. So like this, you will have interaction parameters. So these interaction parameters in some cases plays a very, very important role. If you try to take this own cake example, the sugar content and the egg both tries to have, and if you try to mix these two fellows, they both have an interaction parameter on top of their individual parameter with respect to output. So interaction parameter also you should know. And if suppose, sir, I don't know, I'm doing the experiment for the first time, you are supposed to do a secondary data analysis, read literature or read some books, ask some experts and try to have a ballpark figure, and then you try to analyze the interaction effect. If there is secondary data, so in secondary data means look for references, look for expert comment, look for other market survey or something. From there you try to get the details. Okay, so all these things are very important. And then now what we will do is we will try to see different influences. Say for example, these are correlations. These are, now you have done experiment, you are now plotting those experiments. You are plotting those experiments with respect to various parameters. Okay, so these, when you try to plot it with respect to various parameters, you will try to see y1 with respect to x1, y2 with respect to x2, y3 with respect to x3. Now what you do is you see there is a correlation between the output and the input. Now, when we say the correlation between the output and the input, now the next thing comes is what is the percentage of correlation between the input and the output. So for doing that, we will try to see, we will try to do two things. When we try to, correlation can be explained in terms of developing a model with respect to the data, and what is the variation of this model with respect to the data. First, you are trying to develop a model, and then the variation with respect to the data, the model. So what we do is we try to now quantify the error. So that is what is told about or talked about in this correlation. The correlation will try to give you what is the relationship of the model you have developed with respect to the data. Now you see I have a perfect correlation with respect to data, so I get a value of 1. When I convert it into percentage, it is 100%. You see a data which is spread. This data is signal, and in the signal there can be a noise. So you will always see some variation. You see there, it is 99%, it is 90%, it is 80%, it is 50%, it is 50%. And here, if you see, the line is drawn, and then you have a line. Now the most important thing is what is the slope of this line matters, and with that slope of the line you will try to see the variation you get and try to explain it in correlation. Correlation is you are trying to develop a model with respect to the data what you have generated, and then you are trying to do the analysis. So this is what is explained in this correlation. Okay, so you see here it is 90%, 80%, 50%, and 5%. You are supposed to understand all these things when you are trying to do this analysis. So I would stop here and try to take questions if there are any till now. Varun, we have crossed 1 hour, so I will stop here and I would like to take questions, Varun. If there are questions, please feel free to ask me.
So participants can unmute and you can ask straight away. Nothing is typed in the chat window, sir.
Sir,
So,
here I'm Jinkar Ranganayakulu.
yes, sir, please.
Actually, multivariate objective optimization techniques. We convert the regular things to some common one value. In that case, we won't get this correlation like this. It is varying. If we go for a single response, we can get 0.9 or 0.95 like that. In that case, how we can justify our thing, sir?
Okay, there are two. Yeah, so there are two objectives. You are saying that whatever I discussed till now is single objective. You are trying to say that you have multiple objectives.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you have multiple objectives, and for that multiple objectives, you are trying to see a relationship with x1, x2, x3, x4.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what is your question? You say that during multiple objectives, you will not have a correlation.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, let us go back to the example of cake. So you have taste, you have color, you have consistency. Three outputs.
Yes, sir.
Okay, with these three outputs, first thing what you have to do is you have to identify what is the weightages for individual objectives with respect to your output. See, multi-objective means you have y1, y2, y3. Now you are trying to mix y1, y2, y3, and then you are trying to convert into one parameter called y. So
Yes,
now
sir.
in that case, y1, y2, y3 individual, they have their own weightages. So
Yes,
where
sir.
have you taken these weightages? So you have to first try to take these weightages. When you take these weightages, again you will do your correlation and see with respect to this weightage, whatever you give with respect to x1, x2, x2, x3, x3, x4, and then you come back to the multiple objective optimization. Then only you will get. For example, sir, you try to do turning experiment for MRR, tool wear rate, RA. What is your find? You and all these things are in turn linked as one parameter called as machinability. Now, what when you try to do with machinability, what is the individual influence? First, you have to find out.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, and then only you can do. Many a times, what happens now, sir? When you use all these optimization techniques, for example, GA, gray relation analysis, then you try to use ABC analysis, particle swarm optimization, and all these things. What happens is it will only play with the data. It will not give you the weightages term. This weightages term has to be given by an expert like you who is doing experiments, and then only you can try to do the correlation. It can be one study for you to identify this W1, W2, W3 with respect to correlation. That can be one intermediate step you can do to identify weightages, and then you take it to the final step.
Yes, sir.
You can try that.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Right. Any more questions? And along with me, Dr. Amandeep is also there. He has another explanation for the same question. I would request him to go ahead. You can also explain.
Yeah. Okay, sir. You asked about correlation. Why correlation is important? I think correlation is the building stone of whatever we are doing in ANOVA or everything. So, though we were talking about these multi-objective optimizations, Dr. Ram has already explained that individual correlations are always plotted. You know, in the second half, I'll also try to show some demonstration on that. The model that we'll select, that can be a Nelian model, that can be quadratic model, that can be further higher order model. How do we select that? Sometimes what happens, the cubic model and between the quadratic model, the correlations are also plotted. Sometimes what happens, that certain aliases are there, like we have x1, x2, x3, then x1 square, x2 square, x3 square. Then x1 square can be plotted with x1, x2, x1 square can be plotted with x1, x3. This helps us to identify the multicollinearity. Sometimes what happens, like all these parameters we're talking about, now desired depth of cut, then we have tool speed, feed, etc. one of this, one of them might not be even significant. So whatever your softwares are doing, they are only just plotting these small correlations. That is why correlation is being talked about. And from correlation, we understand regression. From regression, we understand the coefficient of determination. Coefficient of determination, then that is one we all hit about. Coefficient of determination is R square. Okay, this has to be maximized. That is why, that is what we are talking about. But the starting block, what I believe, is correlation itself. I don't know, sir. You people are also expert. You can just suggest me if you have better explanation.
Right, sir.
Okay, so that is what is important, sir. I think Amandeep went into too much of mathematics. So I just put it in a very, very crude fashion because you had in undergraduate students also. So Y1, Y2, Y3, individual weightages of Y1, Y2, Y3 has to be found out. So when you do that, you will try to always have a variation. So before doing multi-objective optimization, you have to do a single objective optimization. And don't use whatever tool you use, don't use it like a black box, because it has its own learning rate, learning algorithm. So then it will try to mislead. When you try to interpret the data and try to present it, please try to back your answer with physics or science, which is there involved. Then only you try to get a clear link. Otherwise, just if you look like a data, you will not get. Many a times what happens is, you see this data, 4 data I said, no? So I said egg is only 2 to 4. Okay. And flour, I said, floor, I said it is 100 to 150 or 120. You see the magnitude. When you use these same magnitudes for making a model, then definitely you will see the flour will become significant and egg will become insignificant. So you have to first normalize the data, and then only you have to do this regression analysis or whatever it is. Many a times we forget to do it. For example, the speed, RPM will be in thousands. Feed rate will be in 0.01 magnitude, and the depth of cut will be in 0.5. So now when you do mathematical correlation, the model, whatever comes out, will just say it is insignificant. But if you normalize the data and do, then you can find it significant. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. Any other question?
Sir, there is another thing, like we may have 2 parameters at 3 levels. One may be at 2 level, or depending upon the availability also, there is some restriction. In that case, how do we do? And another question, sir, if the correlation is important, then to what extent it is acceptable? Like 90% is there, 95 is there, 98, or sometimes we may end up with 80. And when we do this one factor and then fine tune it, at which correlation do we have to stop and say now it is okay to go ahead for the further modeling, sir? These 2 questions from.
Correct. First, okay, let me answer question number 2. Question number 2 is, where should I stop my correlation? That's what is the question. Depending upon the situation, sir. For example, a medical device, you have to have 99% correlation. You have a ground surface, grinding. You have a ground surface. There you can go by 90%. Okay. If you are trying to develop a micro machining setup, micro machining product or whatever it is, then we talk about 99%. Okay. And now when you talk about HSS, the humanity science, even 60% is okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Depending upon the situation, your R square values are accepted. And please understand, it is not necessary that you should get 99% or 100%. If you get even 90%, it is good. But you explain why is that variation of 10%? Who caused this variation? Who is the culprit for not going to 100%? If you can explain it properly, that is good enough. Okay, that is question second answered. Question first, I told you, see what happens many a times in reality, you will not be able to choose 2 levels, 3 levels, 4 levels and all. So there are statistical, I think that Amandeep will try to cover in the second half of the day, where there are certain tools where you can try to have variables x1, x2 at various levels. It is possible. And it is always significant to make sure the significant parameters have multiple levels and the insignificant parameter have only minimum levels. For example, when you take turning as an example, or when you take this cake example, which is getting displayed here, the sugar content is very, very significant. It is good to have 5 levels in sugar and have only 2 levels in egg. So you have to use your prudence again from the secondary data, literature, these, that, you try find out and you try to identify which is significant, insignificant, make the insignificant parameter into 2 level and significant parameter into 5 level. That is possible. Or I will do it like this. First, what you do is a ground level model you develop. A ground level model you develop for the cake itself, where X1, X2, X3, X4 are used. Okay, and you try to take only 3 levels in each or 2 levels in each. Try to get with respect to this output. Now you figure out sugar and flour are the most important thing. Next time you repeat the same experiments, fixing the best parameter for Y1, for O1 and egg. Fix it. And now you try to have 5 levels of sugar and flour. And now you see that who is important and what is their interaction effect. These things you can study. So it is not that people always understand hit and go. It is not that you do only one set of experiments, you understand the process, you start writing the paper and give all the significance. No, it is not so. You have to do one factor at a time to find out the range. Next, what you do is you will develop an individual optimum parameter. Then you will try to find out significant. In significant, you will again try to have multiple levels. Then you will try to talk about the complete process. Okay, it has to be done step by step to get the final answer.
Okay, sir.
Okay. And unfortunately, today everybody is using it like a black box. They just go put the Taguchi technique. The Taguchi technique, you will say, okay, I have three factors, 5 level, 2 level each. Then immediately that Taguchi gives you a table. Let us assume this Taguchi, whatever gives, it is for cooking, it does not understand. Whether it is for doing a micro machining, it does not understand. Right? It just throws in front of you a set of plan, and then you start doing the plan. Now, the individual factors in the plan, you decide, sir. Taguchi will not say. So, Taguchi is just here, yours obediently. So, it will just throw you some table in front of you. Now, you have to use your prudence. And how do you improve your prudence? You do a lot of literature survey. Read data, understand the process, understand the significance. And the other thing, whatever you are trying to talk about here, it will only talk about the significant parameters, the interrelation between the significant parameters, and it will try to tell you the correlation. It is again subjective to the machine what you use, the person what it operates, the workpiece what you come, and the output what you do. I do the experiment in your college, and from that I try to take the workpiece. I come to Kanpur and I do the same experiment in a different machine. The same operator does it, but in a different machine. Will I get repeatability of the same answer? No, you will not get. That is what is the biggest problem with this empirical analysis. So then what is the way out? What is the way out is during this empirical study, you have to look out only which are all the significant parameters and what is the interrelationship influence. This is what you can look. The magnitudes can change. Don't give weightages to magnitudes.
Okay.
So this is the basic understanding. Empirical has this. And again, whatever you are trying to talk about is within the spectrum what you have done. For example, I have chosen oven temperature 70 to 90. Suppose what if my temperature in the oven fails and it cannot go more than 50? What happens? I don't know. Is my model valid? No, it's not, because you have done between only 70 to 90 optimization. Understand this. That is what is important. One factor at a time, identifying range, choosing the levels are very, very important.
Yes,
okay.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Varun, is it fine? So far, so good?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I did not pitch very high because, and even before going into RSM, they should understand all these things. They just look at RSM as a black box. But if
Yes.
they make a mistake here, RSM, whatever you get will be wrong.
Yes, sir. And I think these are the fundamental things which we insist, but it is coming from you, so they will take it like a Bible. They'll adapt very easily, sir.
Very good. No, it is good if they can use it. It is very good.
Yes, sir. And they sometimes who are new to this system, they will try to publish, and then when the reviewers comment on these things, then they'll try to realize and try to do any modifications. But by that time, it is too late. So in the beginning itself,
Yeah.
able
And
to
many a
confidently.
yes, and many a times people don't do one factor at a time. They always think one
Yes,
factor
sir.
at a time is not required, but one factor at a time is very much required. Without that, you can't choose the parameters as well as choose the factors and levels.
Yes, sir. Very true, sir.
So that is very important. Okay, so now let me
And
go back.
backed by physics.
Yes. And then let me start now. I will go back once
Yes, sir.
again. Yeah, I think the audience are there. I will just give another minute. If there is any more questions from the audience, we will try to have a small discussion if there is any. If it is not so, let us keep going.
So good morning, sir.
Sure, sir.
Is there any
After
questions?
this, one question, sir.
Yeah,
Rho
please.
square is equal to 0.9 something you are saying. That is a correlation coefficient or coefficient of determination, sir? That one?
It is correlation.
Correlation, sir. Right, sir.
Yes.
Some places R square, they used to tell coefficient of determination. That's what I got confused.
It is correlation, sir. Correlation.
Yes, sir.
And in the noon, while Amandeep is presenting, Dr. Amandeep Singh is presenting, he will try to show all the formulas and other things, sir, so that it will be a little more clear for you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so now let us keep pushing, and then so you have correlation. So these correlation, you have three types of correlation. One is called as perfect positive. Another one is called as perfect negative. The third one is called as zero. While doing the plot between y and x, whatever it is, you might get in any of these one. You can get 100% positive, 100% negative, you can get zero. And in between is also possible. When you get a zero, please don't think that you have done a mistake. Please don't think you have done a mistake. If you would have done all the steps what till now we discussed properly, then if you get a zero correlation, it is fine. It is fine. Don't worry. Maybe there is no correlation between y1 and x1. So then what do? You will try to remove this x1 out of your factors. If you have zero correlation between y1 and x1, then you should understand this parameter has no role in your output. For example, the number of eggs, let it be 1, 2, 3, 4. There is no influence on the output. Then drop the number of eggs itself from the significant parameters, from the parameters where you do experiment. And so then what will happen? You will now try to focus it more towards the significant parameters with respect to output. So here is what is very important you should understand. After doing experiments, if you get this, then you have made a wrong choice in your X parameter. That is X1, X2, X3, X4. You have chosen something which has no influence on the output. For example, I talking with you people. Okay, the objective is only to talk to you people. Now, if my video is present or not present, it has no influence on your listening to my lecture. If the video is present, you will see my photo in the bottom. But is it going to add value to your listening or absorbing skill? No. It is the audio plus the clarity in the screen which will help you towards understanding. Okay, so this is very important. So you can have one event increases, the second event exactly increases. You can have one event increases, the other event completely decreases. You can have one increases, the second sometimes decreases or sometimes increases. You can get values in between also. But if you get a 0, then you have to quickly remove that factor from your interpretation. There I've already done experiment. What will I do? Sir, it is time you remove that and then do the other. Once again, repeat the experiment without that and go to the output. So you can have correlations like this. You can have a correlation which is negative, which is positive, and then you can have a relationship like exponential down. You can have your raise and then a plateau reaching. All these correlations can be got. So for all these correlation, can I use linear alone as a plot? No. Moment you use linear alone, then what happens is you are trying to miss out the original data. There will be an error in your thing. So what you do generally is you try to touch this data points and then you say, please try to correlate with the equation. Then immediately it says y equal to mx plus c. It gives an equation. Then it says r square value is 8.8. Then you try to say, okay, go to cuboidal. You go to fourth order, sixth order. I see today paper coming with sixth order. See, generally what happens, looking into your process, you should also try to decide the order. Suppose you are trying to work on turning. Okay, so it is a speed, feed, depth of cut. Right, 3 parameters only. No point in going anything more than second order. First order is okay, linear. Second order is okay. Anything more than that, you try to correlate. You are only mathematically trying to correlate, but you are not truly understanding the process. Moment you start doing it in mathematical, then you keep going fourth order, fifth order, then you will see x3, x1 to the power 3, x2 to the power 2, x1 to the power 1. You will see an interrelationship, all these things. All these things becomes insignificant in the practical application. So you should always try to stop yourself with linear and with second order. Second, with these two, you can give a lot of interpretation. And it is not necessary you should always use a straight line. Depending upon the curve, you will try to do. Okay, this particular case, you should try to do two linear. It is called as bilinear curves. One curve like this and the other curve like this. Straight line slope with straight line zero slope. You can have two linear. Now what you do is you try to join these two bilinear curves into one equation and start talking about it. So correlation need not be always a straight line. Now, some of the points for correlation is DOE questions answered by correlation. Then you will try to have scatter points. We will see an example of the scatter points. Then you will try to see correlation coefficient. Then we will try to see other kinds of correlation, then factors affecting the correlation and testing for significance. So are two variables related? Does one increase as the other increases, linear coefficient? Does that is positive? When one increases and the other decreases, it can be negative correlation. How can we get a numerical measure of the degree of relationship? So these are some of the questions which comes to you. So what we do is we first do a scatter plot. This is a scatter plot. Okay, where in which in the scatter plot it tries to say video games and alcohol consumption. If the video games, if you see that if you play more and more hours, and then you see average number of alcoholic drinks per week, if you see, if you play for more hours, you will try to have more number of times in a week alcohol. So it has a positive correlation at some places. Now you see this is a scatter point data. Don't worry when you get this such a plot, you don't have to worry so much. You just have to understand the scatter plot and start giving your interpretation properly. You can also see for the same, the average number of alcohol drinks per week, it increases as and when the average games per week goes high. The next one is, if you look at the examination score, and the average hours of gaming they play, there is not much of negative influence. There is a small decrease in the slope. There is a small decrease in the slope, average exam scores, what people have got. Same way, if you try to take another example with respect to does smoking cigarette increase the systolic blood pressure? So what you are trying to do is you are trying to plot the number of cigarette smokes per day against the systolic blood pressure. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to see the relationship. So fairly moderate relationship, and you see relationship is positive. This is the trend you get. So systolic pressure starts from 120. With no cigarette people who are there, you can go up to 150, and people with who are smoking 10 cigarettes per day, you can see the scatter of data what they get. So smoking and BP, not relationship is moderate but real. Why do we care about relationship, whether positive, negative? What would conclude if there were no relationship? What if the relationship are nearly perfect? What if the relationship is negative? So you will try to see this. This is the data what we the cholesterol level which is there. So the scatter plot for diseases. So you see here, you have done and plotted here a linear one. So this is a data point where X is 6 and Y is there. Okay. So you try to get a linear equation and then plot it. How does the scatter plot show? As smoking increases, so does the coronary heart disease moderately. The relationship looks strong. Not all the data points online are there. This gives us residual or error for prediction. That's why we always talk about the error. The model, whatever you do, you try to talk about the error. Now, the next important thing which comes for discussion is the correlation. So now, correlation, what is correlation? What is correlation? So it is this correlation. Is it what is correlation? Is it correlation? Correlation, is it correlation? Does it talk about the relationship between the two variables? Does it measure the correlation coefficient? Most properly seen the correlation coefficient is Pearson's product momentum correlation. Okay. So type of correlation, positive correlation we have seen, negative correlation we have seen no correlation, we have seen no consistent trend for values of Y to increase or decrease as X increases. So the correlation coefficient can take a value between 1 and -1. Sign refers to the direction. Based on the covariance measure of decrease to which large scores on X goes with a large score on Y, and a small score for X goes with a small score for Y. Okay, this is covariance. So the covariance, remember the covariance formula, what maybe some speaker would have taught yesterday. Covariance X is equal to the summation of X minus X mean, the whole square divided by N is the number of data points minus 1. So this is equal to this, and you try to get this. The formula for covariance covariance, this is for variance, this is for covariance, is summation of X minus X bar into Y minus Y mean divided by N minus 1. Okay. Then how this works and why, and when would covariance XY be large and positive and large and negative? So this is what is the data which is got. This is what is the X minus X bar, Y minus Y bar, and then you are trying to get the X minus X bar, which is the covariance, right? You are trying to get divided by N minus 1. So the covariance, this is what is the covariance. What the heck is covariance? What do I do with this covariance? I thought we were talking about correlation and not covariance. Now we will see what is the difference between correlation and covariance. Correlation coefficient, according to Pearson's product momentum correlation, it is given by the symbol of R. So the correlation is a standardized covariance is given by the formula R, which is covariance xy divided by S of x into S of y. Okay, so this is what is got, and this is called as the correlation. Covariance is divided by the number of the 2D standard deviation, which will be given there. So covariance is COV, which is there, of x and y is 11.2, S of x is 2.33, S of y is 6.69. What is S of x and S of y? S of x and S of y are the standard deviation. Okay, so from there what we get is the R value. The R value can be from -1 to +1. We don't want that to happen. So that is why what we do is we always try to have a R square value, try to take the positive correlation. So the correlation is 0.173. The sign is positive. Why? If sign were negative, what does it mean? What not would not alter the degree of relationship? Would it not alter the degree of relationship? So that is what we are doing. So the other calculations are going to be the Z-score method. So Z-score method is nothing but R is the summation of Zx and Zy divided by n minus 1. The computational raw score can
Hello, sir. Your audio, we are not able to hear, sir. Hello.
Yes, friends, I think his video is also off now. It might be maybe his computer is not working, some internet problem. I don't know. We'll just get back to you in a minute.
Sure, sir. Okay, sir.
from where did you miss?
Sir, in the correlation part, sorry. PPT, if you can show, there is no pay number there. So
Calculations.
yeah, yes, sir.
From here?
Before this, sir, 31. Yeah,
Other
covariance. Other calculations, right, sir.
Okay, how does a scatter plot come? These are all over?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Come here.
This one?
Covariance. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How about this one?
Yes, sir, from here.
Okay. Okay, so from here only I should start, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now let us see the range restriction. So the R value. So look at only a small portion of the total scatter plot. Look at a small portion of the total scatter plot. You can see the R value decreases, and you can also try to reduce the variability of the input process such that your R becomes Good. You can always get a non-linear plot. When you get a non-linear plot, you try to convert that non-linear plot into two linear plots, bilinear or trilinear, and then try to establish a equation for it. So these things Amandeep will be covering in depth in the next lecture. So let me quickly jump and go. So regression also he will try to cover. Okay, so regression let me cover and then let him go. Okay, so what is the regression? So how do we predict one variable from another? So that is what regression, and how does one variable change as that of the other? So then what is their influence? So this is what we get it from the regression analysis. Okay, so X is a variable you are Y is a variable you are predicting, X is a variable which is used for prediction, Y are your prediction parameters output. So how do we care? So till now what we saw is only mathematical equation, this, that, this, that, this, that. So from here what we are trying to do is you are trying to do convert this plot, whatever you get linear 2D into a 3D plot. This is where RSM comes into existence. This is where RSM come into existence. So these things, okay. So the RSM comes into existence. Before getting into RSM, we would just like to see a regression line equation. So a regression line equation is defined as y cap is equal to b of x plus a. This is a linear regression equation. You can also try to have a second order, third order, fourth order. But in order to make the discussion simple, we are trying to take only linear plots and we will see how does it come in RSM. So the regression coefficient, you know, A and B has to be done. Here B talks about the slope, A talks about the interpret. So we try to calculate the B from the covariance, covariance xy and s square. We try to calculate the B, or B is tried to take from S into sy into S. S is nothing but the standard deviation. The intercept, or this is the slope, or the intercept B is taken from this. And you try to calculate A is nothing but y bar minus B into x. So from our data, you try to get a covariance 11.2, standard deviation 5, A and B are this. So now you can use any of the plots, SSP, you can try to do Minitab, you can try to do any of those, this thing, raw, the R software you can use, SPSS software you can use and try to get the results. Finally, what you get is you will try to get this is what is a constant and this is what it is. These are the errors we get. These are the standardized beta value you get. This is the T, which is the test significance, and then you try to see the T values. So this is the residue, whatever you get. This is the predicted graph you get. So this is the residual. Okay, when you do this data points, you try to get a separate column for residual. Residual is the deviation from the line, whatever you have plotted. So how do you minimize the residual? Again, the problem lies with this, the definition of the mean. So you try to take a summation x minus x bar is equal to 0. So how do we get rid of the zeros? So then what do we do is we try to square them off. So that is why we always try to get the R square value. R square value is coefficient of determination or so R square is nothing but the correlation square. R square is SS regression by SS divided by SSY. The percentage of total variability in Y is explained in terms of X. Okay. So now what we do is we have done all these things. We have got it into the equation form. You can see here, this is what RSM comes into existence. Okay, so we had the original system, and then what we did was we did experiments in the minimum in these points, and these points are nothing but taken from the DOE. So if these points are nothing but you can express it in this form. Okay, design of experiments you do, and finally with respect to the output, you try to talk about the RS model, surface output model. Okay, the model are simply polynomial. It includes term for interaction and curvature. It tries to talk about the coefficient are usually established by regression analysis with a computer program. It tries to talk about or discard the insignificant parameters. So when we do that y1, y2, and then we try in a RSM, what we will have is you will have three values, x1, x2, or y1, y2, y3, or x1, x2 with respect to y1. So then you will try to get this plot. So you will try to get this equation from the design of experiments and whatever you did, ANOVA, all these things you will try to get. So the RSM model for two factors can be defined like this. You will try to see y, that is a y cap is equal to b plus bx plus 0 plus error. So b is nothing but you can express it b1, b2, which is a main effect. X1 square, x2 square are nothing but the curvature effect. X1, x2 are the interaction effects plus E. So this in term can be expressed as y cap equal to beta naught into x plus E. Okay, this is for 2. When you have a 3 factor, you will try to have a constant term. Okay, constant term, and then you will have beta 1, beta 2, beta 3. You will have x1, x2, x3. And here we are trying to talk about the curvature. So these are the main effects. These are the curvature effects. These are the interaction effects, and these are plus 0 will try to give it. So RSM for 2 factors, x1, x2, for 3 levels. RSM for 3 factors, x1, x2, x3, and then for 2 levels. Okay, you can try to have this. So for deciding whether to build a response surface method, it is important to assess the adequacy of the linear model. This is a linear model, whatever you get. And here what we do is we try to do the lack of fit method represents below in general and can be considered for any model. So y is a function of beta and xi plus error, where a function of beta and x comma I is an arbitrary function of factors and statistical parameters. They are this thing independent and they are statistical parameters. Okay, so the basic concept for component of error, you can try to have model error, you can try to have experimental error. There are 2 types of error. Your model can give one error, your experiment can give one error. That is why I told you, you try to do insignificant parameters, try to remove the signal, the noise, whatever is there in the process or in the parameters, and try to remove these experimental errors to a large extent. Model errors are always generated from the model, whatever you are developing. This depends on the data. This depends on the data. Okay, and the next one is the model error. Okay, you have these 2 errors. So how do we remove this thing? It will go up to lack of fit. You will try to see the lack of fit. So the lack of fit is going to be will help us to determine if the model error is significant or whether it is insignificant. Okay, so this is how it is. Then in this method, you will try to compare the LOF and PE, experimental error, and then you try to find out the F ratio. This is where comes the F ratio. So you have all sorts of formulas that the software will give, but you have to know in reality what is this F. The F is comparing the lack of fit and LOF, lack of fit from the model error and the PE, and tries to give you the F ratio. So these are some of the different types of DOE, which Dr. Amandeep Singh will be doing it in the second half of the day. So when we talked about 2 factor, and what are we always talking about is this is the space in which we are trying to do experiments x1, x2 and x3. In this cuboidal space, wherever you do experiments, you are trying to say my model is valid. So these levels finally go down to your statistical explanation to this cube. So when we try to do with two factors, this is the space in which you work. When you try to do, what has happened is full factorial is at every point you try to develop all sorts of probabilistic variation. Now, what they have statistically figured out, rather than doing with all respect to points, you do at 4 significant points or 5 significant points, and still you can talk about the cube completely. Okay, so this is what is a design of experiments which talks about, and the 3-level factorial experiments with 2 factors, you can have a mathematical model like this. 3 square factors can be taken. So B1, B2, and then square. That's what I said. You try to, as far as possible, try to limit your model to the square term. Going to cube, going to anything more than that will make your life little bit difficult, and interpretation also becomes difficult. So to a large extent, try to stop with quadratic plots. Okay, try to stop. And the response surface model, you will represent y is nothing but beta. So you remember I was first trying to explain the linear here. Okay, the linear model here, and then I said from here, you see here, linear, the same thing you am taking it as an input for the response surface. So you have main factors, curvature, interaction, and you will have the error. So 3-level factors which are there. 3 factors are geometric representation x1, x2, x3. You have this, and then you will try to have this is the model which we get. And finally, if you see, the simple form is y is equal to beta naught plus beta x plus this one, x1 plus beta x2 plus error you will try to see. So when you try to do a factorial design, it comes like this, and then finally you try to get. So this here we have tried to talk about one more example. Which is talking about see this many a times we do only experiments. You can also try to do these design of experiments for your simulation also. People started using this exhaustively for simulation today. Looking at the output, what is the influence of the output, and then from there they validate their simulation by some experiments. So we do vice versa. We try to do only experiment, validate the experiment and go. You do everything by simulation, try to get the significant parameter, and then try to do only the experiment for the significant parameter, do some experiments and validate your model. That is also allowed today. So here is an experiment which people have done. So I've just taken this prediction, what they have done. So they have run a number of factors, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you decide whatever it is. As far as possible, try to reduce the number of factors. So you have to prudently use your significant, insignificant parameters and start cutting it down. So there you try to plot it with x1, y1, x2, y1, x3, y1 and see the influence and try to cut off. Okay, so this is factorial. These are axial points which we run, and these are the center points which we run. Okay, these are center points, these are axial points, and this is what it is. This is what we try to talk about in terms of CCD. Again, this is part of DOE. Okay, so factorial plus star points gives you CCD. This gives a better understanding with respect to RSM model. When we start going for RSM model, we try to do the DOE with CCD. Okay, so these are extremely high, high, center, low, extremely low. So you have this LOF. LOF test is done, and the star points are also run. So here I've just compared it with a CCD of 3-factor. So orthogonal array 3-factor. I think these things Amandeep will try to talk in depth. So I'm just skipping all these things. So here are some of the experiments which has been done in the past. Okay. So you try to do these experiments and then you try to do. So now what are the 2 surfaces? There are 2 surfaces which comes out in the response surface methodology. You did the experiment, you developed a model. Now you are trying to interpret the data by using response surface. So you generally response surface is done for 2 parameters. One is maximization or minimization. So you try to do the plot between x1, x2 and y1. And then you try to get the plot. And now when you have a surface, you try to section the surface at various levels. So when you try to section a surface at various levels, what you get for each section the surface you get is a contour. So you can try to have your response surface you can try to have a contour response surface, right? So you can try to have sample maxima or minima, or you can try to have stationary ridges. You can also try to have rising ridges. You can try to have saddle points also. When I try to do it with respect to contour, you can also try to have all these things. So these are something which is always used for maximizing or minimizing. And in the same way, standard ridge, stationary ridge, you will get a plot like the stationary ridge. And so when you try to do so, there are two things which is there. One is local optima and the other one is global optima. When you try to do this response surface methodology, you have several plots like this, right? So you have several plots like this. So now when you are trying to do the experiment in this point at this level, you by looking at the equation whatever comes and looking at the coefficients of the model whatever you get, you can quickly find out whether we have to move toward in the increasing slope to go to the global solution or to go to the decreasing slope to the solution. So that means to say, you can try to go for, see, this is maximization problem and this is minimization problem. If you know one, you can try to do the other. For example, you try to take maximization and put -1, you get the minimization. I'm just trying to do a small play and then say, okay, so and suppose here is your optimum solution, your global optimum solution is going to be here. Then every time when you try to do a geometric response surface methodology, while looking at the equation, what are the equations we have been talking about? These are the equations which we have been talking about in length. Okay, these are the equations which we are talking about in length. From these equations, you will try to find out which the coefficient, and then with the coefficient you try to go. So this is what it is. And you can also have a stationary ridge like this. You can have a rising ridge. These are rising ridges. Okay, these are rising. This is a stationary ridge. Okay, this is a stationary ridge. There is no change. Along the line, you try to get the point. But whereas here you see that x1, x2, y1, you try to get the maximum value. Okay, so now you can also have something like a saddle. The saddle is nothing but saddle is when you try to sit on a horse. In order to get a flat surface for you to sit, we sit on a saddle. The same saddle is you talk in terms of lathe machine. The tool post rests on a saddle, right? So the saddle is nothing but you will try to have a profile like this. You will try to have a profile like this. Okay, you will try to have a rising ridge. These are rising ridge. These are saddles. These are saddles. Okay. And when these are 3D plots, with this 3D plot, you can try to understand. Now, I don't like a 3D point. I would like to take a section in one plane and do. Then I try to get these contours. Here also, you can try to have maximize. You can try to have minimize. When we try to have stationary ridge, this is what is the linear plots I will get for a stationary ridge. So here also, you can see 60, 70, 80, and then it goes down. So all experiments which you do for X, for example, like Y1 and X1. So wherever you try to do along this line, you try to get the best result along this line. So 3D converted into 2D is the contour surface, response surface. You can also try to get, this is stationary rigid. So you can have a rising ridge is like this. A contour profile will show like this. You can also have a mini max or a saddle. So then you will see a plot, something like this you will get. So response surface is this. And then from there, if you want to take a contour, it is going to be like this. So what are the advantages of response surface? Highly computational problems can be solved by doing approximation. Sensitivity is not available. We try to do this. Global behavior also we can try to find out from this RSM. Real and numerical experiments can be done by using this RSM. When a batch run is impossible, when a batch run 4, 5, 6 in a batch are impossible, repeatability is not there. So we can try to use this. For any system which has an input and a response, you can try to do this RSM method, easy to implement. And the part of MDO and concurrent engineering, when we try to do it in industrial engineering, that is also part of it. then it is optimization. MDO is optimization. Probabilistic concept can be used. Also, along with the statistics, if you try to integrate, probabilistic also can be used. The noisy responses or environments can be avoided. Okay, so this is what is the advantage of RSM, and the disadvantages are many a times we have approximately error, and the size of the approximation domain is very dominating sometimes. Okay, with this I would like to finish my talk, and these are some of the references I have used, and I would like to thank once again the organizer for giving me an opportunity. Now I'm open for questions. And all the formulas and DOE will be dealt by Dr. Ramandeep Singh in the second half, where he will be talking about DOE and factorial designs.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Any participant would like to interact, any queries, please, you can unmute and you may talk. Sir, I have one query, sir. This is regarding that if we have a combination, like one is a factor, or sorry, category type, and another one is a numerical type, then in the RSM, how do we decide, sir? Or
it is always better to avoid this category.
okay, but
one of the variable x1, one of the inputs you try to have always SiC tool, tungsten carbide tool, and then people try to take HSS tool. With Hanji?
I meant if suppose we have geometric progression in lathe machine for speed, so in that case we cannot get like in CNC. In such cases, sir, we cannot avoid the speed, no, sir.
Yeah, so that in that time what happens is you will always have, you should look at the correlation, and you should always look at the plots, responses, whatever you get. Okay, so suppose if it is 63 is the value you are getting from the equispaced, and your machine is not allowing to have 63, it is only allowing you to have 70. So finally you should see the 7 RPM whatever error you have made with respect to the final output of RPM whatever you have chosen. You will try to have a ballpark figure. Okay, if there is a error of 10%, it is still okay because I have not chosen the exact standard points.
Okay.
So like that, you can try to do a small this thing. So that is why I said there are two types of error. One is the experimental error. Second is the model error. So what you see in the model error is F test and all these are there. But what you do in the experiment is also getting integrated in your linear equation y equal to beta naught plus E. There you have two errors. So you should be careful in understanding those two errors. And when people try to do categorical experiments. So categorical experiments, what you are supposed to do is remove the categories from the input parameters. Remove it from the input parameters. So moment you remove it and then try to do, so for every category, you might have a different set of optimization. You will see that is different. And if you try to do a common objective optimization, you will see it is completely different. Now, what are you trying to do? You are trying to compare a donkey, a elephant, a cow, a tiger, a cheetah, and a cat. If you look at all the six has 4 legs. And like that, people are trying to do categorizing and then they do it in DOE. Sorry, a cat will run at a very high speed. An elephant cannot even run. How can you equate these two with a running race of saying that, okay, this is what is the time, this is what it is, this is what it is. It is not possible. So then you will get a wrong. See, the biggest success of all these chain shops, Starbucks, McDonald's, and then pizza, all these fellows they have established very good consistency in their process.
Yes, sir.
immaterial of the skilled level. If my son who is studying in 5th standard becomes an operator for that machine, you will still get the same taste. Why? Because the timing you cannot tamper. Second thing is that the temperature zone is that through which the pizza goes is not going to be from 0 to 100, from 100 to 0. It is going to be very gradual. And the third thing is the ingredients, what is coming into the process, they are also standardized. So there cannot be any variation.
Yes, sir.
So you should understand that and then start doing it. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any more questions?
Yes, Dr. Warren. This is
Yes,
Amandeep
sir.
here.
Yes, sir.
So regarding the categories as well, like Professor Ram is actually trying to talk about the realistic situations. You know, realistic
Yes, sir.
situations, all McDonald's, Starbucks, all the different categories, but the processing will be same. But for the sake of publishing, if you like to understand how do we, do more experiments in category, for each category, separate set of experiments are to be conducted. And I think I'll show you in the second half, with parallel line equations, parallel regression equations can be generated. Like
Yes, sir.
the contour would be exactly parallel, but they would have a different intercept. Like it is beta naught value would be different. However, beta 1, beta 2, beta 3 for all the categories would be same. So it is like you can say McDonald's, for McDonald's, let me say beta naught value is 0.9. For Starbucks, beta naught value is something 0.7. Okay, then for KFC, the beta naught value would be 0.6. Only beta naught, the intercept value. But all other
Yes, sir.
values, beta 1, beta 2, it is number of employees they have, the processes, that would be same. That also I can show. Because students also would like to know, for publishing sometime we have to do these things.
Yes.
But for realistic situations, this doesn't matter. Actually, in itself, from the beginning itself, it is better to like convert categorical or the quantitative data into quantitative data. That is also possible.
Yes, sir.
You can correct me, Professor Ram, if there is something. Yes, sir. Any other questions if you have?
Okay, I think that's all. Thank you, sir, Ramkumar sir and Amandeep sir. It's a great honor to have you as a resource person, eminent professors from IIT Kanpur. And firstly, I would like to thank Ramkumar sir for his immediate response and quickly accepting the request when I initially initiated this as an email through resource to act as a resource person in this STTP program. And sir has given a very clear, easy to understand, simple examples, and it is very clear with the introductory part. And I think sir also brought few case studies, and I think this is the fundamental things which is very much needed for the budding researchers. And I'm very thankful to both the professors coming from IIT Kanpur and giving their lecture in this STTP program. Thank you very much, sir, Ramkumar sir and Amandeep sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure, but we could not cover much because it's a very big topic. So
Yes,
I tried jumping around. So I think when you finish the day, Amandeep would have given a lot of importance. Amandeep, I have a small request. You please give a lot of importance for it in this DOE. And later, maybe 20 minutes, you give importance for this mathematical thing, because the students, if they do a mistake first, then they will not know what is happening with the results. So anyhow, I leave it to Dr. Amandeep for taking over. At the outset, once again, thank you to all the organizers for giving me a chance. See, internet technology has really revolutionized. You see, I am sitting in Kanpur talking to people sitting in Andhra Pradesh or Telangana, wherever. I'm sitting there and I'm talking to you guys. Thanks to technology. And this technology also, the bandwidth, everything is optimized, sir. Today we are enjoying because the failure rate is reduced to a large extent. So here also they do design of experiments. Okay. So thank you very much. Wish you all good luck. Stay safe and all the best to everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So, dear participants, I'll be sharing the feedback through WhatsApp. Amandeep Singh, sir, thank you, sir. And we'll join back again at 1:30 sharp. And Amandeep Singh, sir, will take up the rest of the portion. Thank you, sir. We'll join back at 1:30 using the same link.
Okay. Yes, Professor Varun, can we make it 2? Like maybe a little, maybe 10-15 minutes late, maybe.
At 2 o'clock, sir.
Yeah, would it be okay? I can come at 1:30 itself, no issues. For the participants, I'm only because already it's 12:20.
No, sir. Actually, the issue is we have to board bus here. We have to travel back to
Okay,
our
no
homes.
issues. 1:30,
That is the
1:30,
only concern.
1:30.
Otherwise, it's fine. Sir. Okay, sir.
1:30, perfectly. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.